Most lawyers, I would say 99.999% of all lawyers will agree with me when I ask, can you guarantee your client that you will win at trial? And their answer uniformly is no. We do not know what a jury will do with this case. That is their own lawyer telling them that. That's powerful. Both sides will say this. You don't know. Sometimes it's a matter of flipping a coin of how that case is going to turn out. But in mediation, you have the ability to control that outcome, to control the risk instead of having a bad outcome.
What if the most expensive mistakes in real estate isn't a bad deal, but how you handle conflict when things go sideways? Lawsuits can drain your time, your money, and your reputation, but what if there's a smarter, faster, and more strategic way to protect your deals before they blow up? Today's guest has spent over 3 decades inside the legal trenches, and for the last 15 years, he's been helping people resolve dispute without stepping into a courtroom. From commercial real estate and construction to insurance and high stakes civil cases, he's seen exactly why deals fall apart and how the right mediation can save them. Joining us today is Patrick Russell, Miami-based mediator with Salmon and Dulberg Dispute Resolution, Florida Civil Court certified mediator, educator behind Meaningful Mediation, and founder of a nonprofit preserving veteran stories. If you're a real estate professional, investor, builder, or homeowner, and you want to protect your assets, your relationships, and your sanity, this is an episode you do not want to miss. Patrick, before we talk strategy, I want to rewind. You've worked both sides of the courtroom, plaintiffs and defendants, for decades. What originally pulled you towards mediation?
First of all, thank you, Lancelot, for having me on your podcast. It's a great honor, and it's going to be fun speaking with you today. What pulled me into mediation is the challenge of problem solving. So as a lawyer, it's a one direction show. It's win or lose. And you don't know where that's going to go all the time, which we can talk about later. But with mediation, the challenge is trying to get two sparring parties come together voluntarily without a judge telling them. That puzzle and how to get those pieces to work is something that I enjoy and always have enjoyed, even as a lawyer. I tried to set up my cases to try to do that very same thing. And so then I made a decision, why not just do that full time? And so that's when I made the switch over.
And what moment made you realize litigation wasn't always the best solution?
I would say very early on. I'm talking about in the first few years of my practice, because you see the pain, the angst that it causes clients. I'm their counselor, and you can see it. It's not only in terms of the time that it takes from them, the frustration, the anxiety. It's not something people enjoy, going to court or having to battle somebody in a legal battle, but also, more importantly, their pocketbook. It costs money to go to court, have a lawyer, and sometimes even if you win, you still lose. It may cost more to get what you gain. And that's the scary part. So I always advise my clients of that. And oftentimes that was the case, or you just break even. If you would have done this much earlier, everybody would have been well ahead. So I recognized that very early on, and that's why I always tried to push my cases for settlement. It wasn't a sign of weakness, and I was one of the people probably didn't understand that. And I'm talking about my fellow lawyers on the other side of my cases. They probably thought, hey, this guy's got a weak case. He's trying to settle it. No, I always thought that was the better way. Overall, big picture, macro view.
Got you. I hope everybody would start thinking like that too. Was there a case early on that changed how you viewed conflict resolution?
Not really. It was just a culmination of all of them, really. But you could just see, depending on the stakes of the cases, like early on, I even handled like family law cases, so divorces. And when you have children involved, and those are really high stakes, high emotion cases, you could just see the toll that takes on families. The business cases, when it becomes like a business divorce, so partners, same thing. People become really entrenched and they end up just burning bridges and burning assets. And that's why I always thought that getting to an earlier resolution is much better. People can make what I try to set people up in my mediations is to make a rational business decision. So leave the emotions behind, start thinking, how can I solve this problem?
As if you would be running your company. A lot
Correct.
of
What do
yeah,
people do when and that's why I like when I do business mediations, because theoretically, if you have two business owners, they're already in that mindset. They're used to that. Now, something may have happened between them that they fall off those rails, right? And my job is to try to get them back on where they can look at this in a rational way and make a good decision.
for sure. And how did becoming a certified mediator in 2009 reshape your perspective on real estate disputes?
It's much the same in terms of, again, I had this view early on. So it didn't change it much other than I would say the certification course is phenomenal because even if you don't want to be a mediator, it can teach lawyers or non-lawyers, because you don't have to be a lawyer to be a mediator, although it's very helpful, but it teaches you a lot of different skills in terms of negotiation and psychology, all the elements of what makes people tick. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. When you need people to get together, and I have one of my mantras is getting to we. You may have heard the famous book, Getting to Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree that's the ultimate conclusion, but you can't get to yes until you get to we. Like we agree.
Correct.
That's what you ultimately want, right? When both sides say we agree, both sides say yes.
Luckily, we hear that a lot in our business, a lot more in real estate than, but we don't. For someone new to this, what is mediation and how does it specifically apply to real estate disputes?
In the mediation is an informal dispute resolution process. So instead of having the court decide the outcome for you, whether that's by a judge or a jury, the parties themselves are empowered to make that decision on their own. So they negotiate, they find a solution. Hopefully, they put their problems aside for that day and they come together with a neutral party, which is what I am as a mediator. I'm the neutral party that facilitates this environment where we get together and try to figure out what the problem is and how we can move forward. It's forward looking when we have a problem and we keep on looking behind. We all know how we got here. We all know we have a disagreement. We all know that we're angry. But if you still stay in that sphere back there, you're never going to move forward. So we have to focus going forward and how do we solve it? So it's an informal process. You can have a lawyer or not, depends on where you are in your legal dispute. You can do it through court. So if you're in court in Florida, before you can have a trial date, I think every single case in Florida is mandated to go to mediation first before you can get your trial date. So that's where I see most people, but also it's encouraged to have mediation even before you have a lawsuit. So that's called early dispute resolution. Now think about that. Before you even hired a lawyer, so before you even spend even more money, before you spent filing fees for court, because usually when people hire a lawyer, the stakes immediately go through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
People begin entrenched. You get divided. Each side is trying to win, right? And destroy the other, so to speak. If you can get together before that, it's much easier because you haven't become so entrenched. And then hopefully early on, you don't have to get those emotions in play and you can actually get a resolution.
That is awesome. What types of real estate conflicts are best suited for mediation?
I, both as a lawyer and as a mediator, I've been involved in ones that involve your genre, real estate transactions gone south. Something's happened. Seller doesn't want to sell. Buyer doesn't want to buy. Financing falls through. Inspections, whatever. Something has gone haywire and somebody doesn't like it. resulting in what? A lawsuit. Could even involve the real estate commission. There's been real estate commission cases that I've handled where brokers don't get paid and claim they should have been paid. Those turn into lawsuits. Real estate evictions, whether it's commercial through businesses or residential, those are lawsuits. Those go to mediation, and I've handled those. You can have what I call premises liability cases. A property owner, somebody is injured upon your property. Usually these involve condo associations, businesses like malls and stores. So somebody gets injured upon a piece of property. There's certain safety standards you're supposed to maintain. Those become personal injury lawsuits, but they're related to the property. Construction claims. Contractors build buildings, subcontractors do work, but somebody's not getting paid. Something happens. I'm involved in those type of cases as well. So that's just a sprinkling, probably a couple more I can think of, but those are the main ones that I see a lot of.
Why is mediation often faster and less expensive than litigation?
Litigation has its own track. Lawyer, you have to pay for a lawyer for the most part. If you're not going to have a lawyer and the other side does. So generally speaking, people suit up, armor up with lawyers. They're not inexpensive. It will take at least a year for a legal case. So if you want a resolution, you need a decision sooner rather than later. You have to bet on at least being a year. And that's in the best case scenario. Before the recent Supreme Court updates to our rules, I mean, you could easily say you won't have a trial for 2 to 3 years. Now they're trying to speed it up to at least a year. This does not count appeals. So if there's ever an appeal filed in your case, you can talk about another 3, 6, 9 months or a year just for that. So time is a big factor in cases like this. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Money is being paid for lawyers, legal costs, experts, filing fees, depositions, court reporters, you name it. It's cha-ching, cha-ching. It can be very expensive. Mediation, if you can resolve your case sooner rather than later, you can avoid a lot of that stuff.
And how much does a mediator cost usually compared to an attorney, let's say?
Generally speaking, the mediator fee and the lawyer fees are similar, depending, of course, on the lawyer. They could be less, they could be a little bit more, but generally speaking, also it's divided.
Oh, because both parties are paying for it instead of one party paying for one attorney and the other party paying for another attorney. Yeah, I see that.
Each party is splitting the mediation fee. So unlike their lawyer, you have to pay your full lawyer's fee. And then there are cases in which if you lose and if legal fees are a right to the prevailing party, you could end up having to pay the other side's legal fees too, which could be, so you've paid your own plus the other side and you lost. So that is a real dumpster fire, so to speak.
Oh, for sure. How does mediation protect long-term business relationships?
In the instances, like I would say, where you have, let's say, a tenant. I'm thinking here on the fly. If you have a tenant and a long-standing tenant in a commercial strip mall, and business is tough, the economy is not that great, it's going up and down, things are whatever they are, you could go ahead and boot that person out. Then you'll have an empty space. You will have destroyed that relationship, obviously, and then you're going to have to try to move on and fill it. Now, if it's been a long-term customer that's paid well over time, maybe it would be worth pursuing maintaining that relationship, keeping it, and continuing on, and then not have to worry about finding a new tenant. It could be suppliers where you have manufacturers and suppliers, and they have a dispute over production, whether it's faulty production, deficient production, or just not paying on time, whatever. But if you need that person, you've worked with them, preserving that often is because there's a reason why you got them in the first place, right? You approved them for some reason. Maybe it's worth preserving that rather than axing that and having to start all over again. Do you want to do the Band-Aid or do you want to try to fix it?
Well, it makes a lot of sense if you think about the grand scheme of things. Maybe adjust some rates or something for a time period, then go back up to the normal rate just to keep the tenant afloat. And it will help the tenant, it will help you because you don't have to evict or you don't have to switch out. Marketing costs on getting a new tenant is not cheap nowadays. None of that is by the time while you don't have a tenant is also cost for you. So I look at it as cost, although it's vacancy.
Even in your specific field, let's say there's a commission dispute. Do you really want to burn bridges because the community is small? You're going to run into each other. Do you want to burn those bridges over that? A one-time transaction and make it into a one-off versus you can have referrals going back and forth. You work together. There's bigger fish to catch, right? So
Right.
do you want to have the long-term view or is it a one and done? That's up to you. But mediation can preserve that long-term relationship.
Definitely. I'm just thinking about this that it happens quite often and we just let it go. And a lot of times, deal falls apart. According to the contract, the listing agreement, every listing agreement, once we have an offer accepted, we are due our commission no matter what happens in that transaction because we have done our job pretty much. The transaction part is a secondary thing. And a lot of times we just let it go. Okay, whatever, you don't have to pay me my commission, although this contract does say that you're supposed to pay me. They say, oh, it's just natural I don't have to pay because it didn't close. Now that would be a cool way of, hey, let's go to mitigation and let's talk about this because I was supposed to do. Maybe I'm not going to ask you for anything or just ask you to pay for the mitigation, but it would put that in perspective in a lot of people's minds that, hey, you have a contract, you agreed to the contract, it says this in the contract. Yes, the deal didn't happen at the end, but the brokers are due their money no matter what, if the deal falls apart or not. So it's what I've realized is that they do not value what we're giving them by not actually asking for a commission check. As you said, it's not worth burning bridges. So how would that be communicated in a proper way to a person that has some weight on it, but won't cost a lot of money? Is maybe sending over something like this. I pretty much agreed that I'm not going to pay you, but here's a formal letter from my attorney or someone that I was supposed to get paid. Because a lot of people don't understand that I've done my job. I've procured a purchaser or a seller or vice versa for this deal, and that was my job. Yeah. I just think that this could be pretty cool, especially in bigger deals where you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money on procuring those buyers or finding the property. And then the buyer says, you found the property. I don't like it anymore. Even though we went under contract, let's back out of it. You don't get paid. The only people that get paid if the escrow stays in is the seller and the seller's agent. As a buyer's agent, you already done your footwork. And I'm not getting paid unless it closes. and let's say it's a commercial property for $5 to $10 million. And you're like, I just spent so much time, 6 months or something, looking for this property. I think that would be a solution, and not to burn bridges with you guys. But just understand I'm not here for free and run around for you guys for nothing.
Yeah.
So walk us through what actually happens in a mediation room, step by step.
Generally speaking, when the parties appear before me, they technically should have already been prepared by their lawyers as to what to expect and what they're going to do during that mediation. And they're negotiating strategy so that the client is not surprised. No one likes surprises, right? And so is not surprised by what's going on during mediation. Unmet expectations is one of the killers at mediation. That's one of the Achilles heels, so to speak. If a client comes in and doesn't really necessarily know what's going on and thinks that their case is worth $1 million and has been told that by the lawyer, but then the lawyer starts negotiating and starts opening up with 500,000, that's going to cause a problem if the client isn't advised that's the strategy, right? So they need to be prepared and know what the strategy is. So what happens? We all get together, everybody together. I tend to start my mediations off first where I divide the groups into separate rooms. not because I don't want to see them together, but because I want to get to know them better individually first before I begin my mediation. So the mediation actually is technically already ongoing, but I'm building rapport with the parties. I'm trying to understand their views. I've already reviewed the case, so I get a sense of what it is. I ask some questions, try to get a feel for where they are and where they want to go. And I do the same thing with the other side. And I try to get some feedback as to where they are. And that's really what I need to know, people to people, how they are working. Then we go back together in a joint session. That's the time where the lawyers will do their presentations as to what the case is about. So if you're the claimant or the plaintiff in a case, you go first. You then indicate to me what the case is about. You can do it with PowerPoints, arguments, whatever it is, but you educate the mediator what the case is about from your perspective. In my mind, the most important thing is not really to try to educate me, because I'm not the decision maker. It's the other side, right? So really, when the lawyers are speaking, they should be speaking to the other side, trying to share information with them to make them see the case more like them. When each side does that, they get closer and closer, right? So that's really what they should be doing. Meanwhile, the clients are listening and observing and getting feedback of how the other side sees the case. They may have heard it from their lawyer, but may have not been signaled the same way. It's one thing for me to tell you what the other side is saying versus hearing it directly. And maybe some information is missing. So you hear it directly. From there, we then break off back into our separate groups where we do a recap. Okay, here we are. This is what each side has said. And then we start negotiating. Typically, it's about numbers, right? But if there are other conditions, whether it's payment terms or you name it, in mediation, the beauty of mediation is you can craft things any way you want. If you go to court, by law, there's only certain things a court can do. In mediation, you can do all kinds of different things. So it gives you a lot of opportunity. It also provides you with an opportunity for certainty. So when you go to court, there is no necessarily slam dunk case, right?
Yeah.
Most lawyers, I would say 99.999% of all lawyers will agree with me when I ask, can you guarantee your client that you will win at trial? And their answer uniformly is no. We do not know what a jury will do with this case. That is their own lawyer telling them that. That's powerful. Both sides will say this. You don't know. Sometimes it's a matter of flipping a coin of how that case is going to turn out. But in mediation, you have the ability to control that outcome, to control the risk. Instead of having a bad outcome, okay, we are going to be flexible. We're going to do one that we both can agree to. We're both going to give in a little bit. Doesn't have to be splitting the middle, but you're going to find a solution that works for both of you versus somebody getting a really bad day.
And what preparation gives parties the biggest advantage going into a mediation?
I would say, in terms of preparation, knowing for the parties themselves, knowing the negotiation strategy. What is my case worth, right? And what's it worth in terms of not because of what can I win? There's a difference between what I can win versus a risk value of the case. So if your case is worth $100,000 with 100% liability, it's only worth $50,000 with a 50% liability, right?
Yeah.
So what is it actually worth in a risk-adjusted value? Because if people come in and think that their case is worth $100,000, if they win, there's no guarantee you're going to win, right? So knowing that number and then having a strategy, knowing your bottom line and what are my moves to get to my number. So the client doesn't get upset when you have to negotiate. Because if you are anchored, you believe that your case is worth $100,000 and the lawyer starts moving down from that, each one of those moves becomes really painful for the client. They're like, what are you doing? I'm losing money every time you talk. It's not the case, but that's how it feels to them. But if they're prepared and know that these moves are being made with a strategy and a purpose, it flows much easier. So I think really having the lawyer prepared, knowing the value of their case and a plan, and educating the client on that plan, the pros and cons of the case. No case is 100% certain. Here's their weaknesses. This is what we got to be aware of. You're going to hear it from the other side. Don't be surprised, right? If you do all that preparation and both sides do this, it'll be much easier to come together.
So next part, we touched on it briefly. Most people think that mediation only happens after a lawsuit is filed, but that's not always true, and we talked about that. Can mediation happen before a lawsuit, and when does early mediation make the most sense?
It can happen, as we discussed earlier. It doesn't happen enough. I know that there is definitely a push, especially from the dispute resolution field and from certain lawyers, that, hey, this does make a lot of sense because of the way the trial docket is for lawyers. It's now almost impossible for lawyers to try every case. There's only so much time, and yet it's been compressed, and you can't get all your cases done in that time period. It's impossible. So I think there's going to come a day and age, and it's coming sooner rather than later, where strategically lawyers are going to have to say, okay, before we file some of these cases, we know that they probably can be settled. Normally we would file a lawsuit and settle them later. We can't do that old system anymore. We file the ones that we know that probably can't be settled and that they're going to need to be decided by a judge. The ones that should be settled, that we think we can be settled, why don't we switch those over to early dispute resolution? Let's get a mediation on the books before we file, and maybe we can resolve it, and everybody saves a little more time and money, and then we focus only on the cases that need to be tried. In my mind, that's an efficient, useful way, a strategic way to handle those things. And the time is coming where that needs to be done now more than ever.
How early intervention can preserve deals and reputations?
Reputation, you just said it, right? If you file that lawsuit, that becomes a public record. Now, does that mean that there's no broadcast out there? There's no social media channel in the courthouse that blasts every pleading and all the allegations out there in the world. But technically speaking, if you wanted to scour any file, any new file, and look at it, you could find out what the lawsuits are and who's involved and what they say is happening. But if you want to preserve the reputation and spotlessness of your company, and you don't want to be known as a litigious person or one that was involved with allegations of negligence or malfeasance, settling those cases before they even get into the public record makes sense.
It does, definitely. What warning signs should agents and investors look for?
Warning signs?
Yes, that they should be doing this instead of a litigation or anything else.
It depends on the agent. Again, it's like the one-off. What are you trying to do? What's your goal, first of all? Is your goal, let's just do it, say, taking it back to a commission dispute.
Let me say this, add this to it. For instance, what are those signs that see that, oh my God, these guys are going to sue? Instead of doing that, let's go into a mediation instead. Those are the warning signs I'm talking about for agents and investors. So what are those warning signs that would help us realize that, oh, let's try to steer this in the other direction that would be better for everybody instead of let's go to court and boom. Yeah, because no brokers want to go to court for that. Oh my God, that's like the worst thing for a broker. And we get sued quite often as real estate agents for a lot of times no reason. But instead of a lawsuit, how about one of these? So tell me about that.
I would say that the easiest warning sign is receiving a letter from a lawyer from the other side saying, hey, do this or else. Here is my demand. This is my final notice before a lawsuit is filed. Something to that effect is a time to engage and say, we've got somebody that's claiming, we never know, claiming that they want to file something, but they've got a lawyer already writing to you. That would seem that you're on the cusp of jumping into the next phase. So I would say that before that next phase starts, here's your warning. Try the engagement at that point. Say, listen, I hear you. We disagree, but why don't we see if we can try to resolve this in mediation and save us all a bunch of time and money? Are you open to that idea? That would be a response.
It's a good response. I think most people would take that. It has a lot of emotions involved when you get one of those letters. I've got a letter before from an attorney, and I knew the attorney, I knew the attorney because it was the attorney of my client, and it was a client. I'm like, what is this, man? Why are you sending me a letter to release her from her contract? It was a binding contract, but she didn't give you an opportunity. I have buyers ready to go and look at the property, et cetera, et cetera. She got talked to by another agent. The other agent was talking bad stuff about me and how I'm conducting my business, and she felt that she wasn't serviced properly. And then the attorney writes me the letter. And it was horrible because I'd never gotten one of those before. I'm like, I always go above and beyond for all my clients. I spent a lot of money on getting the property out there. It was a bad time of a bad year. It was a few years ago when it was nothing selling. And we were the highest priced house on the market in the area as well. It was the largest house. So undoubtedly, it was worth close to what we were asking for. It sold about $50,000 under what we had listed for. So we weren't far apart from our list price compared to the sale price. And I have just done some adjustments to pricing, et cetera, to get some more action. We're just getting into the summer. It was in spring. So she was like, but there's no showings. You're not doing your job. And the other agent's talking this and that. And I'm like, and then you get the letter. And I'm like, it was good because we got the broker on the line, we got the attorney on the line, and then we came to an agreement that she will pay my marketing costs once it closed, and then we'll let it go. And she agreed to that, and we mediated it. I think it was like a pre-mediation thing, and I wasn't happy because I knew that I could have sold it at the price it sold at, but she wasn't ready to let me drop the price there. She was ready to let another agent drop the price there, but she was not letting me to drop the price there. So
well,
it was like
probably an instance where you got poached by another agent.
Correct. Right? And that agent
should have simple.
Exactly. That agent should have been dealt with because we have a code of ethics, and as real estate agents, we're not supposed to do that, and they do it a lot of times. And she could have lost her membership with NAR if that could have came out with PREC or something like that, I think. But I'm not the guy that pursues. As you said, do you want that stain on you that you're the guy that throws other agents under the bus? No, I wouldn't care for that. There's plenty of business out there.
Yeah.
Next question is, how should real estate professionals think differently about conflict resolution?
I think they should see it as a possible win-win, right? Instead of sometimes, and even in the legal community, people look at mediation as just another thing to do. Maybe even as a frustrating thing. I really want to go to my trial, right? This is just getting in the way of me doing what I really need to do. This is getting in the way of what I'm really good at. Or there's a lot of different things that different lawyers can assign to. And I get it. I've been there too. But if you adjust your outlook and your intention that, hey, this is a problem-solving technique. As a lawyer or as a professional, I'm trying to, at the end of the day, when there's a dispute, you want to resolve it, right? That's the whole goal, is to solve it. No one wants an ongoing wound forever, especially one that you have to pay for if you're in a lawsuit, okay? If you modify your outlook and listen, this is a valuable tool that can be a win-win. How do we use it appropriately? How do I get buy-in from both sides? Like, I can adjust my mindset. Now, how do we get the other side to do the same so we're on common ground and we can figure out how to rationally make a good business decision to move on, right? Not be stuck in the past. How do we move forward?
Correct. And how agents can protect deals before emotions escalate?
Again, and you probably can answer this better than me. Right? I should ask you the question. Maybe I can learn something. But what is it you really want to do would be my question. What's your goal? Is your goal to inflict pain? Is your goal revenge? Is your goal to get out of the deal? Is your goal to get a commission? Is your goal to buy that house? What is your end goal? Once you identify what your end goal is, then you can start problem solving how to get there. But you need to know what your goal is. So there's always a solution for no matter what, right? If your goal is to just cause chaos in the world, it's really easy to do.
Definitely. And why mediation is a business skill, not a legal fallback.
I think it is, in terms of a business school, a skill, it's about dealing with people. So you need to know that there's different people in all walks of life. I see them all every day in the mediation room. You have very sophisticated, high-end business owners. You have your mom and pop shop grocery owners. You've got your working man. You've got your mother at home. You've got people all ranges of cultures, language skills, education, you name it. And you need to, as a skill, if you want to get everybody together and get to you need to know how to get all the people together and be able to speak with them. You can't speak the same way with the business person as you can with other people. There's different things that you do. And I think it's really fascinating once you learn that. If you can get along with everybody, you can really do a lot of good. So this helps not only in mediation, but if you want to negotiate and make deals, it's the same skill set.
I think realtors are great mediators. A lot of us, not all of us, but we are. There's always what you said. It's exactly what we do pretty much in a transaction. We bring two parties together and we figure out who wants what, how, and we each talk to our clients that are figure out their styles and ways. And there's a massive variety of people. So I think we do a lot of that in real estate. Not as seriously as you do it, but we do it in our own kind of way. We call it negotiations, just plain negotiations, but I think it's pretty much a mediation at that way. I just have a different term. It depends how deep you get into the contract. So now I have a rapid fire insight round questions. So just answer them quickly if you can. A couple words. One myth about mediation you'd like to debunk.
That it's a waste of time. Like I said, some people, maybe because they've had bad results, get the right mediator, get the right preparation, get the right frame of mind. Maybe you'll have a different outcome, but it is not. It's what you put in is what you will get out.
Yes. And one thing every real estate agent should do before conflict escalates.
I would say take a break. You need to have an emotional reset. I think that would be the first thing that I would do. Don't make rash judgments. Don't send out communications or make phone calls in anger. Take a time out, rethink, recalibrate. How can I resolve this problem? How can I get us back on track?
I love that because I constantly do that. A lot of times I get upset and then I go to my wife and I tell her why I'm upset and all that stuff. I just take a break, go for a walk, go for some fresh air, come back with a calm mind, think it through what you want to say, and then do it. And that helps so much. And I think, I don't know how many deals I could have lost if I would have just been spontaneously answering people for a lot of their anger coming towards not me. It's not aimed at me. It's aimed at the transaction itself. But a lot of people get angry during, or mad, or sad, or overconfident, or super happy. And happy is good to get. But when you get all the other ones, the negative ones, you're like, oh my God, why is he bombing me with this? I'm not a psychologist. I can't help that. And you have to think it through and then go back and give them a logical, good answer that will help them get back on track. And yes, you're right. Take a breath, step back. It's an amazing skill, guys. Everybody should use that skill. It's you learn it and then you can't go without it. One habit that leads to better mediation outcomes.
One habit, I would say the preparation aspect, and that involves not only knowing your case, but being prepared to have flexibility, know what's going on, and being able to make those moves when necessary. I think that's the number one.
Today's conversation is a reminder that in real estate, the smartest moves isn't always fight harder, it's resolving smarter. Mediation isn't about giving in, it's about protecting your investments, your relationships, and your future business. Patrick, thank you for sharing your insights and your experience with where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, so meaningful-mediation.com. You can find me on LinkedIn using my name, Patrick Russell. Those are the main places, and I work at Salmon Dulberg, so also there.
All this will be in the show notes underneath, guys. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe to Real Estate Roundtable, leave us a review, and share this with a colleague who needs to hear it. I'm Lancelot Lenard, host of Real Estate Roundtable and team leader of the Sir Lancelot Group. Until next time, protect the deal before it becomes a dispute. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, where we've unveiled the mysteries of real estate together. Remember, in this kingdom of possibilities, every dream home is just a discussion away. I can help your real estate dreams come true. Just call me at 786-449-7518. Until our next roundtable, may your ventures be prosperous and your homes be filled with love and joy. Farewell, fellow knights of real estate.